Good afternoon, Grace Community Chapel. Hope you are all doing well on this Thursday. I was going to say Wednesday because I forgot to do yesterday, and I realized that probably at like 8 o'clock last night. Anyways, it feels like a Wednesday to me, but it's actually Thursday. But we're going to be getting into Proverbs chapter 8 today, talking about the blessings of wisdom. We're going to see wisdom personified again. By personified, we means that it's a literary style where you take a concept and give it personal characteristics. And so we're going to see that in Proverbs chapter 8. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Proverbs chapter 8, starting in verse 1. Does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way, at the crossroads, she takes her stand. Besides the gates in the front of the town, and at the entrance of the portals, she cries aloud. To you, O men, I cry. My cry is to the children of men. O simple ones, learn prudence. O fools, learn sense. Hear, for I will speak noble things, and from my lips will come what is right. And from my mouth will utter truth, wickedness and abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteous. There is nothing twisted or crooked in them. They are all straight to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. Take my instruction instead of silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you may desire cannot compare with her. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and find knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance are the way of evil, and perverted speech I hate. I have counsel and sound wisdom. I have insight and I have strength. By me kings reign, and rulers declare what is just. By me princes rule, and all nobles who govern justly. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and riches. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield than choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness and in the paths of justice, granting an inheritance to those who love me, and filling their treasuries. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his work, in the first of his acts of old. Ages ago I was set up, at the first before the beginning of the earth. When there was no depths I was brought forth, and when there was no springs abounding with water. Before the mountains had shaped, and before the hills I was brought forth. Before he had made the earth with its fields, or the first of the dust of the world. When he established the heavens I was there, and when he drew a circle on the face of the deep. When he made firm the skies above, when he established the fountains of the deep. When he assigned the sea its limit, and the waters that the waters might not transgress his command. When he marked out the foundation of the earth. Then I was there beside him, like a master workman. I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world, and delighting in the children of man. And now, O sons, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. Hear instruction to be wise, and do not neglect it. Blessed is the one who listens to me, and watching daily at my gates, waiting beside my doors. Whoever finds me finds life, and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who fails to find me injures himself, and all who hate me love death. So we have a wonderful personification of wisdom. Just as a side note, if you've ever interacted with a Jehovah's Witness, sometimes they will come to Proverbs 8 and they will utilize Proverbs 8 to declare to you the creation of the Son, which we know to be Jesus. It's a really easy thing to refute if you just look at what the intention of the author is. The author is clearly talking about wisdom throughout all of this. That's kind of the intention. Certainly, the Son is an expression. Jesus is certainly the expression. God is the expression of all wisdom. We see that in this text. But this is again a personification of something that is not an actual person, whereas Christ is an actual person. So let's take a look here at a couple different concepts. There's a lot in this text, and we're going to just have to scrape some of the surface level of this. First, we saw this before, I think in chapter 2, I believe it was. But ultimately, we see wisdom being publicly available. Wisdom is not hiding. Wisdom is standing at the crossroads. She's beside the gate in front of the town, and she's crying aloud. She should be easily sought and easily found. However, a lot of times people won't pursue her, even when she's readily accessible to people. Instead, they choose to find something else. And ultimately, they don't seek truth, they don't seek righteousness, and they don't seek knowledge. They instead seek their own personal gain, which instead, if they would have sought wisdom, instruction, instead of silver, knowledge rather than choice gold, as we see in verse 10, if they would have sought instruction, knowledge, and wisdom, all the other things that we desire can't compare to it. And that's kind of the intention here. So as we continue looking, and wisdom talks about the what's anti-wisdom. So anti-wisdom is first off, it's fear of the Lord is wisdom, and it's also the hatred of evil is wisdom. And pride and arrogance is the way of evil. I think about pride and arrogance, and I think about the person who claims knowledge, the person who thinks they're wise in their own eyes, right? And you've all met people. Maybe you're thinking I'm one of those people. I hope not. But maybe you do. Uh, you notice someone who's wise in their own eyes, and based upon your interaction with them, you go, "Wow, that person's really a fool." And pride and arrogance ultimately is the opposite of being wise. And so, one of the ways you can identify pride and arrogance also is perverted speech. It's contrary to wisdom. So, wisdom has counsel, it has sound wisdom, insight, and strength. By it, people rule. I find it interesting, verse 17, it says, "I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me." That is, yet again, a general truth from Proverbs that if you love wisdom, wisdom will love you. And if you seek me diligently, you'll find him. I think the more that I have learned, and I think age is one of the big things that gives us wisdom. The more that I've experienced in my life, and the more that I have pursued and chased after wisdom, the more that I love wisdom, and I love what wisdom produces. And I found that when you seek after it, you will find it. Sometimes you don't find it exactly in the moment that you want it. Sometimes you're like, I want to know what to do about the situation that's coming up 5 months from now, but you don't necessarily have that. But if you pursue wisdom when that situation finally comes and you have to make a decision, you can know what the right thing is to do. I'm confident of that. Wisdom grants an inheritance to those who love her, and she fills their treasuries. There's a certain element to which, although sometimes wisdom is contrary to choosing kind of the get rich quick, which is kind of what the contrast in a sense here is. That if you follow wisdom, that the general truth is there's going to be an inheritance, and whether we're talking about an inheritance of wisdom, which you could argue, but I think in verse 21 it says filling their treasuries. I think wisdom results generally in financial blessings. I do believe that's true, and that's a generic truth we find in Proverbs. Verse 22, amazing verse. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his work and the first of his acts of old. We think about God is essence of who God is. He is wise. He is wisdom. And so when the writer here in Proverbs in chapter 8, yet again, probably assuming Solomon, he's talking about and personifying wisdom. When he goes to wisdom's origin, he goes to the Lord. And that at the beginning of his work, wisdom was there, was being applied, was being utilized. And that wisdom was set up before anything else was in place to be gone to pursue, right? And then we see just kind of descriptions of creation, which is some really cool language and description of creation. Wisdom is God's daily delight. That's what we see, rejoicing before him always. And so now we see the writer again, Solomon. "Oh, now, O sons, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways," referring to wisdom. "Hear instruction and be wise, and do not neglect it. Blessed is the one who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting beside my door, pursuing that wisdom, trying to see where wisdom is at. And ultimately, whoever finds wisdom finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. But if you spurn wisdom and you do that which is not wise, you will ultimately injure yourself. And in a sense, you just love death." So that's the words of wisdom in Proverbs chapter 8. We're going to be talking about the way of wisdom tomorrow, Friday. So looking forward to seeing you then. Also, if you don't have plans tomorrow night, we're going to be showing a movie tomorrow night at church. We'd love to have you, 6 o'clock. We're going to be showing Voice of the Martyrs movie. We've also got childcare provided. They're going to be seeing a different movie and some snacks and some crafts. So love to have you come out. Love to have you come and spend some time with us and just kick back, eat some movie popcorn, and watch a movie with us. So at the church, 187 Lewiston Road. Love to have you if you can make it. And we'll be here again tomorrow morning to discuss the next chapter of Proverbs. Take care. Good afternoon, Grace, or I should say morning, Grace Community Chapel. Good morning. Happy Friday to you all. Looking forward to reading Proverbs chapter 9 with you today. And also looking forward to as many of you can make it out this evening. We're going to be showing the movie Sabina. Would encourage you to come and check it out. It's a pretty good movie, and talking about specifically Richard and Sabina, who are the original founders of what is now known as Voice of the Martyrs. So, anyways, would encourage you to come out. It's a good film. And a good discussion around Christian persecution and how do we handle that. So we'd love to see you. It'll be at 6 o'clock tonight. Movie will probably start right around 6:15. Just got to get people in and settled. We're going to have popcorn, so I encourage you to come and get some free popcorn and something to drink and hang out with us. So anyways, Proverbs chapter 9, starting in verse 1. Wisdom has built her house, and she has hewn her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her beasts and has mixed her wine, and she has also set her table. She has sent out her young women to call from the highest places in town. Whoever is simple, let him turn and hear. To him who lacks sense, she says, Come, eat of my bread and drink of my wine that I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and live, and walk in the way of insight. Whoever corrects a scoffer himself gets himself abuse, and when he reproves a wicked man, he incurs injury. Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied, and your years will be added to your life. If you are wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will bear it. The woman folly is loud, she is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house, and she takes the seat in the highest places in town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn and hear, and to him who lacks sense, she says, Stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there, and that her guests are the depths of Sheol. So just two contrasts. You've got the woman folly and the woman wisdom. Looking at first the woman folly, she's loud. And what's interesting is that although the woman wisdom ultimately does send her people out and she does call out, it says that folly is loud. And he makes an interesting point specifically that folly is also seductive and knows nothing. I think sometimes this can be what happens in social media, is that the loudest voices, the ones that are getting the most responses, are the ones that oftentimes know nothing. And I think social media can be a really dangerous place for folly. Specifically in reference to Proverbs 9:13, talking about this woman folly, she sits at the door of her house and takes a seat on the highest places in town, ultimately calling to those who pass by who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn and hear, and to him who lacks sense, she says. And it's interesting because you contrast that against versus the woman who is wisdom. It says, whoever is simple, let him turn and hear, and to him who lacks sense, she says. It's interesting, but they're both at the same places. They're both calling out. They're both saying something similar, but the difference is the result of what they're providing. What they're providing is different, and ultimately the result is different. And then he goes on in verse 7 of chapter 9 to talk about whoever corrects a scoffer himself gets abuse, and whenever he reproves a wicked man incurs injury. I think about this. Sometimes we try to figure out how to best correct somebody, and there are sometimes that it is in the best judgment to not correct somebody. And we're going to talk about that when we get to another proverb. We'll get there at some point. It talks about answer the fool according to his folly. And then it says in the next verse, don't answer a fool according to his folly. And there's a certain sense to which you have to use wisdom to determine whether or not this is a situation where you can actually provide a critique that would be listened to, or if it would ultimately just get abuse. And I think, this platform's on social media. You guys are apparently using social media in order to get this. This would be something that'd be good wisdom for you to use as you're scrolling down through your feed and you see something, and you have to evaluate: is this where I'm going to be correcting someone who's a scoffer? Because in that case, I'm just going to get abuse. And if I'm trying to reprove a wicked person, I'm just going to get injured. Don't reprove a scoffer; he will hate you. But instead, reprove a wise man, and he will love you. If you give instruction to a wise man, he'll still be wiser. And if you teach a righteous man, he will increase in learning. See, so think about who you're giving that truth to. I mean, Jesus says, "Don't throw your pearls before swine." What he means is, don't give something to somebody that's not going to receive it, something that's precious. And if it is good wisdom that you're sharing, which is another thing. Maybe you're the scoffer. Maybe you're the person that's not necessarily being wise. But assuming that you are being wise in your interaction, maybe that's not the right person to hear it, or maybe that's not the way for them to hear it. I think a lot of times, especially with social media, it's not the way to correct somebody. There are better ways and manners. And aim to be like the wise man. Aim to be like the wise man who, when someone gives instruction or when someone reproves you, that you treat them with love and you aim to find the truth in what they're sharing. So that would be the aim of still being wiser. Again, the verse says, "Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning." And the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. And for by those things, by wisdom, your days will be multiplied, your years will be added to your life. And yet again, general principle would be, if you're wise, you're going to live longer. That's what it's saying, and it's not wrong. It's just not always true. Some wise people have died young, but that's generically not always the case. In verse 12, it says, "If you are wise for yourself, but if you scoff, you alone will bear it." If anything else, seek wisdom for yourself. Seek wisdom for your own benefit. Because ultimately, if you're a scoffer, you're the person who's going to also bear scoffing, and you're the one that's going to bear it. So seek wisdom. Look at Proverbs 9. Think about what it says about wisdom, and seek it in every way that you're living, both online and in person. Well, anyways, that's what we got to share for today in Proverbs chapter 9. Looking forward to reading with you again on Monday. I look forward to seeing many of you tonight if we can, and certainly all the more of you. Men's breakfast on Saturday morning. If you're a man, we'd love to have you come out and eat some breakfast with us at 8 o'clock. And then we'll have our regular services on Sunday with the ladies' Bible study that afternoon. So a full weekend here at Grace. And certainly don't feel like you have to come to everything, but we'd love to have you to as much as you'd like to attend so that we can fellowship and be together and get to know each other better. All right. Well, God bless. Have a great weekend, and look forward to seeing you soon. Good afternoon, Grace Community Chapel. Hope you are all doing well on this Monday. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Glad to be with you and reading some Proverbs today. We are getting ready to start on Proverbs chapter 10, the Proverbs of Solomon as it's been listed. These specifically are when we begin to see individual statements rather than collective statements, individual statements of wisdom. Again, that's when we kind of get little nuggets in each quote-unquote verse or series of verses. So we will be starting that, and we will be going through that. That's pretty much what the rest of the book is single sections of wise sayings. So starting in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 1, here we go. The Proverbs of Solomon. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is a sorrow to his mother. Treasures gained by wickedness do not profit, but righteousness delivers from death. The Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, but he thwarts the craving of the wicked. A slack hand causes poverty, but a hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in the summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who brings shame. Blessings are on the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. The memory of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot. The wise of heart will receive commandments, but a babbling fool will come to ruin. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his ways crooked will be found out. Whoever winks the eye causes trouble, and a babbling fool will come to ruin. But the mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, and the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. On the lips of him who has understanding, wisdom is found, but a rod is for backup of him who lacks sense. The wise lay up knowledge, but the mouth of the fool brings ruin near. A rich man's wealth is his strong city, and the poverty of the poor is their ruin. The wage of the righteous leads to life, and the gain of the wicked to sin. Whoever heeds instruction is on the path of life, but he who rejects reproof leads others astray. The one who conceals hatred has lying lips, and the one who utters slander is a fool. When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver, and the heart of the wicked is of little worth. The lips of the righteous feed many, but the fools die for lack of sense. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Doing wrong is like a joke to a fool, but wisdom is a pleasure to a man of understanding. What the wicked dreads will come upon him, but the desire of the righteous will be granted. When tempest passes and the wicked are no more, the righteous is established forever. Like a vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is the sluggard to those who send him. The fear of the Lord prolongs life, but the years of the wicked will be short. The hope of the righteous brings joy, but the expectation of the wicked will perish. The way of the Lord is a stronghold to the blameless, but destruction to evildoers. The righteous will never be removed, but the wicked will not dwell in the land. The mouth of the righteousness brings forth wisdom, and a perverse tongue will be cut off. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked what is perverse. That is where we're going to conclude our reading for today. You'll notice in this section, certainly the Proverbs are kind of all over the map, but at the same time, there tends to be a general theme in a section. If you were to section out Proverbs, you can kind of get some sort of general theme. And without doing a too in-depth study, that's not my intent in these brief, 5-10 minute sections of reading Scripture. Really and truly, it seems to be a consistent theme, and you'll probably notice it. It's words, lips, speaking. It's all related to what we say. And not that there isn't other things, but that is a large emphasis in this section. So just a couple Proverbs that stuck out specifically to me. I find it interesting that it says in verse 3, and the Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, but he thwarts the craving of the wicked. Now, again, these are general truths. That does not mean that righteous people don't go hungry, because we know that sometimes they do. However, the generic truth behind it, I think, is interesting, that God will provide the needs of the righteous people, but ultimately the wicked will always have craving that they cannot satisfy. They will always have craving that they cannot satisfy. That's kind of what's being said there. And that's a very interesting statement. And I think that is generically true. That the wicked will always have a craving that they cannot be satisfied. So anyways, that was something that I thought was interesting. There's a number of Proverbs, and we see this consistently throughout the book of Proverbs about, like we see in verse 4, a slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. There is general wisdom that if you work hard, you are going to receive the due of your work, and you'll be not in poverty. The problem is that's a general truth. It is not always the case, and some people have experienced that they've worked extremely hard, but they get nothing from their labor because of injustice or whatever. And so, we recognize that that's not always the case, or because maybe they work as hard as they can, but their capacity does not allow them to work as hard as maybe somebody else can. And so, all of those things take into effect. But the reality is that if we work hard and we put effort in towards something, we can save ourselves from poverty, and we can ultimately provide ourselves what we need, if not abundantly. So coming on down a little bit more, let's just take another section here. I'm trying to find the ones that was specifically hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. It's interesting, I think, that when your heart is bent towards hatred, you are going to continue to notice that strife will occur in your life, and you'll find situations where you're in fights with people. However, conversely, if you find yourself with love for other people, those offenses are going to be covered up and they won't matter. So that's an interesting statement we see again all over the New Testament, where there is a idea that love covers a multitude of sins. Again, that's not a new idea. We see that obviously right here in Proverbs chapter 10. We also see it elsewhere in the Old Testament. All right, let's go to another one that kind of stuck out to me, and I'm sure there's some that are sticking out to you, but I like this one in verse 17. Whoever heeds instruction is on the path to life, but whoever rejects reproof leads others astray. It's interesting because there's two things here. It's the person who heeds instruction. So that means that you've not only heard it, but you're actually following through with what it says. And it says that you're on the path to life. That is the way to remain on the path of life and not on the path of death, but it's to heed instruction when it's been given. But conversely, the one who rejects reproof, it's not that you're not on the path of life. It's actually way beyond that. You're actually even leading others astray. So it goes beyond just that you're not on the right path. It's not only are you not on the right path, but you're also leading other people in the same path that you are. And so if you're not heeding instruction, if I'm not heeding instruction, then we're leading other people astray. And so we have to be people ready to receive reproof, ready to receive someone coming against us and saying, hey, this is where you're wrong, right? And we got to be able to accept that and not just immediately reject it. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes people aren't giving us feedback or isn't giving us sort of reproof that isn't appropriate, that isn't right. Like they're not accurate in what they're saying. And in those times, I think what we do is we accept their feedback the best that we can, and we correct in the areas that was consistent with what God would demand of us from Scripture. And that's where we have to know enough of the words of God and not be self-deceived, because that happens. The next one, really, this one's one I committed to memory because I think about it all the time. Verse 19, when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent or is wise, depending on your translation. And so I think about this, the more often that we talk, how often that the more talking we do, ultimately that would betray that some sort of transgression or sin is not lacking. That the more I say, inevitably, eventually, it's going to produce something in me, sin, whether it's pride, arrogance, selfishness, conceit, unkindness, uncharity, you name it, right? Just maybe a foul word or something that doesn't build up. The more that we talk, the more likely there is that there's going to be transgression, because that comes out of the outpouring of the heart. And that's why it then says in verse 20, the tongue of the righteous is choice silver, but the heart of the wicked is of little worth, right? And then it says the lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of sense. And so there's this idea that our lips should be the type of words that come out of them that ultimately it produces encouragement and feeds other people, and in a good way, not in a bad way, but feeds other people in a good way. And continues to encourage others and build each other up. And so whether it's on social media, whether it's on the phone, whether it's interactions with someone in your household, a neighbor, or whether it's interactions at your business, place of work, or wherever you go, whether it's the grocery store or what, be thinking about those things, thinking about what does it mean that when words are many, transgressions not lacking, and that the lips of the righteous feed many. How can I make that true in my life and make those proverbs an accurate reflection of how I'm living my life in light of that wisdom? So those are the couple things that I wanted to say. There's a lot in this text, certainly. If you have something you'd like to throw in, feel free. But in all of these things, we pray that you would be continuing to seek after wisdom, remembering what it says in James that if we pursue wisdom, God is faithful to provide wisdom to us. So God bless you all. I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon on Monday, and look forward to doing Proverbs chapter 11 with you tomorrow. Take care. Good afternoon, Grace Community Chapel. Hope you are all doing well on this Tuesday. Getting ready to read Proverbs chapter 11, continuing in Solomon's Proverbs. And we'll be looking at a number of Proverbs today. And hopefully you're all enjoying the lack of snow. Hopefully we continue to see that for a little while longer, and as we continue through mud season. But excited to be able to kind of continue to see slowly weather starting to warm up a little bit here and there. So it's exciting, and at least the sun's out, and so excited to see some green coming soon. Hopefully that'll be soon. But today, looking at Proverbs chapter 11, looking at specifically a whole bunch of different proverbs that Solomon is reported to have been wrote, and we're going to start in verse 1. Right at the top of your screen here. False balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is delight. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. The righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight, but the wicked falls by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the treacherous are taken captive by their lusts. When the wicked dies, his hope will perish, and the expectation of wealth perishes too. The righteous is delivered from trouble, and the wicked walks into it instead. With his mouth the godless man would destroy his neighbor, but by knowledge the righteous are delivered. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. By the blessing of the upright a city is exalted, and by the mouth of the wicked it is overthrown. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. Whoever puts up security for a stranger will surely suffer harm, but he who hates striking hands in a pledge is secure. A gracious woman gets honor, and a violent man gets riches. A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. The wicked earns deceptive wages, and the one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. Whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die. Those of a crooked heart are an abomination to the Lord, but those of blameless ways are his delight. Be assured, an evil person will not go unpunished, but the offspring of the righteous will be delivered. Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman without discretion. The desire of the righteous ends only in good, and the expectation of the wicked in wrath. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer, and yet another one withholds what he should give and only suffers want. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and the one who waters himself will be watered. The people curse him who holds back grain, but put a blessing on the head of him who sells it. Whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, but evil comes to him who searches for it. Whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like a green leaf. Whoever troubles his own household will inherit the wind, and the fool will be the servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and whoever captures souls is wise. If the righteous is repaid on earth, how much more the wicked and the sinner? So we got a lot of different proverbs there, a lot of different things that we could address, a lot of different kind of concepts, but we're going to go back up at the top and we're going to work our way down with just a couple. First off, right off the bat, the verse 1, Proverbs 11:1. Keep in mind that these chapters and verse divisions are something that occurred later, so it just helps us find stuff. But a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, and a just weight is his delight. And that might not make a whole lot of sense to us, but in the Bible times, and specifically Old Testament and New Testament, they would have to have a balance to be able to weigh things in order to determine what is fair. And so they would take a balance and they would place it, and you'd put your X weight of this and X weight of that, and you would exchange based upon kind of an equal exchange. And the idea here is that you would set a particular weight of a particular item and a particular value of it, and if it was equal weights and measures, then you would have an equal balance between the two, and you'd have a trade. But there were people that would intentionally alter those devices in order to make the balance off, in order that they might receive more than what was fair, and ultimately swindle somebody. So what's being said here is someone who intentionally sets a false balance. So someone who's intentionally out to deceive others for their gain is an abomination to the Lord. But ultimately, a just weight is in His delight. So that's something that's interesting, and I think that does come into play in our interactions with others. Are we trying to deceive people in order to get more for ourselves, or are we fair in our dealings with others? And this goes back to the integrity, which is partly talked about throughout this entire section. So coming down a little bit further, just kind of moving down a little bit, there's a lot we could talk about, but let's go right down to where verse 9. With his mouth the godless man would destroy his neighbor, but by knowledge the righteous are delivered. We see that it's interesting because we see this wordplay here on the mouth and destruction and knowledge and delivered. So we see that that there's this, in a sense, where we're seeing the mouth again, like we talked about yesterday, is deceitful. It's destructive. It ultimately causes harm. And then we go into the next section in verse 11. It says, "But the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it is overthrown." And we see this element to which the words that we speak and the things that we say, and when we use our words and when we reveal things about other people, and when we slander, which we see in verse 12, "Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent." Verse 13, "Whoever goes in about slandering and revealing secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps the thing covered." So we see that there's this element by which we should be wise in how we use the words that we have. And when someone says something to us in secret, we shouldn't be going around belittling our neighbor with things that we know. We shouldn't be slandering others. It's just not something that's good. So, I mean, this is something that happens in the assembly of the church, unfortunately, and it causes massive destruction. And so we must be really cautious that when we're talking about other people's within the church, we're always talking about something that's edifying, that's building up, not just the person that we're talking to, but also the person that we might be talking about. And even sometimes in us saying, "Will you pray for so-and-so?" We have a tendency to say things that really is not helpful and belittles our neighbor, when maybe we would be better off to remain silent and just say, "Hey, please pray for so-and-so." Now, likewise, whoever goes about slandering, revealing secrets, right? Sometimes we reveal things and asking for prayer requests that maybe we shouldn't speak of. And so we have to be wise in being trustworthy in our spirit and keep things covered when we need to. Last thing, I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about. Last thing I really want to do is actually verse 14. "Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in abundance of counselors there is safety." This one is a constant reminder in my mind that we are not to be people that just kind of go out and just do whatever we're going to do without guidance. We should be constantly seeking the abundance of wise counselors, because that will produce safety. That's a generic truth that when you go and you ask other people, "What do you think about X, Y, or Z?" Um, and they give you some guidance. Again, assuming that you are going to people that are going to give you good counsel, because you can go to people who will give you bad counsel, or go to people who just give you the counsel you want. But if you're going to people that you can trust their wisdom, the more that you get differing opinions and thoughts on your situation, the more safety there's going to be. So I would encourage you to do that. Lots of other great stuff, a lot of other good thoughts here and words of wisdom. But ultimately, we'll pick this up again tomorrow with chapter 12, reading some more Proverbs of Solomon. Hopefully, these daily moments of wisdom have been helpful to you. Look forward to dealing with some more tomorrow in Proverbs chapter 12. Take care. God bless. Good afternoon, Grace Community Chapel. Hope you are doing well on this Thursday late afternoon. We're back at Proverbs chapter 12. Sorry for missing you guys yesterday. Excited to be back. Yesterday I was actually at a pastor's meeting, which is why I wasn't able to sneak in here and get Proverbs chapter 12 done. So we're a chapter behind, but that's all right. We're going to keep plugging along with Proverbs chapter 12 today. And looking forward to getting through the next couple of chapters. Some really great proverbs in these next. Well, not that the other ones weren't great, but there's just some really great ones moving forward, and I love reading them. So excited to do that with you today. So Proverbs chapter 12, we're going to be looking at that one right now. So verse 1, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. I'd love to stop there, but we won't yet. A good man obtains a favor from the Lord, but a man of evil devices he condemns. No one is established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous will never be moved. An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who brings shame is like rottenness to his bones. The thoughts of the righteous are just, and the counsels of the wicked are deceitful. The words of the wicked lie in wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright delivers them. The wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous will stand. A man is commended according to his good sense, but one of twisted mind is despised. Better to be lowly and have a servant than to play a grand man and lack bread. Whoever is righteous has regard for the life of his beast, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. Whoever is wicked covets the spoils of evildoers, but the root of the righteous bears fruit. An evil man is ensnared by the transgression of his lips, but a righteous man escapes from trouble. From the fruit of his mouth a man is satisfied with good, and the work of a man's hand comes back to him. The way of the fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. The vexation of a fool is known at once, but the prudent ignores an insult. Whoever speaks the truth gives honest evidence, but a false witness utters deceit. There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise bring healing. Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue is for but a moment. Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but to those who plan peace can have joy. Those who have planned peace have joy. No ill befalls the righteous, but the wicked are filled with trouble. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are his delight. A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims folly. The hand of the diligent will rule, while the slothful will be put into forced labor. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. One who is righteous is a guide to his neighbor, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Whoever is slothful will not roast his game, but the diligent man will get precious wealth. And in the path of righteousness is life, and its pathway there is no death. So we'll end there on verse 28, and just a perfect place to end. In the path of righteous is life, and in its pathway there is no death. So we want to be on the pathway of righteousness. We want to be pursuing life. Just some quick proverbs I think that are really great. Verse 25, I think is not that they all aren't really great, but there's just some that stick out to me. Verse 25, anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. I think about when someone's anxious around us, we want to try to do something to encourage them, and sometimes we end up trying to fix the problem. But I think sometimes just reminding them of the promises of God, right, is an example of a good word that would hold them and maybe make them glad. Another one that I think is really important is lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. We see that in verse 22. But those who act faithfully are his delight. We are to be the kind of people that are not of lying lips, but are to speak truthfully and honestly in all the things that we do. Scrolling up a little bit, truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue is for but a moment. It's interesting. We lie, but then we have to then quickly tell another lie, and then we have to quickly tell another lie. But when you speak the truth, that remains. You don't have to add. You don't have to change it. You don't have to alter it. Um, Whoever speaks the truth gives honest evidence, but a false witness utters deceit. I mean, this is just going back to just the speaking in truth. Verse 16 is actually really interesting. It says, the vexation of the fool is known at once, but the prudent ignores an insult. This is describing that when you insult a fool or when you say something to a fool that makes them upset, they come right back at you really quickly. But it is prudent and it is wise when we are insulted to just maybe ignore the insult. Like don't exchange for kind. That's what Jesus meant when he said, "Turn the other cheek." If someone was going to do something evil to you or wrong to you, just turn away. There's no point in exchanging evil for evil. The way of the fool is right in his own eyes, verse 15, but a wise man listens to his own advice. Really, I really like that one. The way of the fool is right. It always seems right to us, uh, but that's why we have to seek and pursue wisdom. We have to ask for wisdom of others. Um, then looking next, the very first one that kind of should stick out to me because I know it's true. An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who brings shame is like rottenness in his bones. Keep in mind that the Bible comes from a Middle Eastern culture, a lot more honor and shame type culture. And if you don't know what that is, I encourage you to look up a little bit more about the difference between honor and shame and a guilt society, as opposed to we are like a guilt and forgiveness society. And it's very interesting that what it means to bring shame upon other people. But I'll tell you, I have an excellent wife, and she is the kind of person that I am always happy to be around and always happy to interact with. And when I tell people, yeah, she's my wife, I'm excited to tell people she's my wife because she's like an 11 or a 12, and I'm like a 4. So I really married up. That's an exciting thing for me personally. And I absolutely love the very first verse here. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. um, you know, so Bible says stupid. Maybe we shouldn't say stupid, but the Bible says stupid, and the Bible says that the person who hates reproof, or when someone comes against you and says, "Hey, this is what you're doing is wrong," um, that's stupid when you hate that. We are to love discipline. We are to love knowledge. We are to love it when our brothers and sisters come to us, and even when it's hard to hear, when they're giving us some feedback that we need to hear. We need to love that. We need to love knowledge. We need to pursue that discipline and be willing to listen to the advice and words of others. So, anyway, so that's what I would have to share from Proverbs chapter 12. Hopefully, you had some good nuggets there yourself, and hopefully you'll be able to tune in with us again tomorrow. We'll do Proverbs chapter 13 before we get into the weekend. Love you all. God bless. Good afternoon, Grace Community Chapel. Hope you are all doing well on Friday, April 1st. Hopefully, no one has, as of yet, tried to deceive you and make a fool out of you. And hopefully, you've tuned in some time in order to get some wisdom for the day. But happy April Fool's Day if it is such a happy thing. But if you have yet to get somebody with a prank, I guess here's your chance. You've been reminded. And if you've yet to been pranked, well, there you go. Now you know to watch out. So we are going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 13 because although it is April Fool's Day, we don't celebrate the fool. In fact, we yearn for wisdom and seek to have wisdom and live our lives in a way of wisdom. So, Proverbs chapter 13, we're going to go ahead and start reading. A wise son hears his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to a rebuke. From the fruit of his mouth a man eats what is good, but the desire of the treacherous is for violence. Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. The righteous hates falsehood, but the wicked brings shame and disgrace. Righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but sin overthrows the wicked. One pretends to be rich, yet has nothing, and another pretends to be poor, yet has great wealth. The ransom of a man's life is his wealth, but a poor man hears no threat. Continuing verse 9. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked will be put out. By insolence comes nothing but strife, but with those who take advice is wisdom. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Whoever despises the word brings destruction upon himself, but he who reveres the commandment will be rewarded. The teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, that one may turn away from the snares of death. Good sense wins favor, but the way of the treacherous is their ruin. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool flaunts his folly. A wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a faithful envoy brings healing. Poverty and disgrace comes to him who ignores instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is honored. A desire fulfilled is sweet to the soul, but to turn away from evil is an abomination to fools. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Disaster pursues sinners, but the righteous are rewarded with good. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. The fallow ground of the poor would yield much food, but is swept away through injustice. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. The righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the belly of the wicked suffers want. So as you may be noticing as we're going through the Proverbs, there is kind of consistent themes that we see throughout the book of Proverbs, and sometimes it's said differently, sometimes it's said almost the exact same way. And so we see a couple of those themes, one of them being that very last verse, verse 25. The righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the belly of the wicked suffers want. There's this desire that the righteous people will ultimately be content and satisfied, but people who are wicked and pursue evil desires, they will always suffer want. And so that's something that we see continually throughout the book of Proverbs. Another thing that was often quoted, whoever spares the rod hates his son. But he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. And sometimes this is used in a negative manner. This is used in the wrong way. This is used in an abusive manner. But the idea is that we are to discipline children, especially our children, in a way that would show them how to live, which means that when we are providing discipline that may come in the form of punishment, that the reason why the punishment is coming is because we're teaching them about life. And just like in the Proverbs here, we see that certain paths lead to certain destruction. The parent is attempting to train their child through punishment that, hey, if you continued in this pattern of behavior, that would provide a punishment to you at some point. That's really outside of your control. Let me give you an example. If you don't show up to work over and over again as an employee, at some point your employer is going to fire you. Don't do your job the way you've been told to do it. At some point, your employer is going to fire you. That's a punishment. That's a natural consequence from the actions, though. And so what parents are trying to do is they're trying to help their children see that there are things in life when you don't do what you're supposed to do, natural consequences come. Looking at some other stuff, let's go back up right at the very front, the very first thing, and then conversely, if you're the son, if you're the person who's the child of the parent, a wise son hears his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. We talked about this yesterday. If you don't listen to a rebuke, chapter 12 verse 1 says you're stupid. We talked about that yesterday. Again, guarding the lips of your mouth, making sure that you're being careful with what you say, that we hate the wrongdoings, that we hate falsehood. Verse 7 is very interesting. One pretends to be rich and yet has nothing, and another pretends to be poor yet has great wealth. You hear about those stories about people who live like they have nothing, but really they're secret closet millionaires, right? And I think sometimes what the Proverbs specifically is saying is don't let appearances trick you, because sometimes what you see isn't what you're getting, and isn't the reality. And so be thinking about that too. I mean, sometimes we see things in one particular way, and it seems this way to us, but that's not the reality. We were talking in Wednesday night talking about Lot, someone who in Genesis we would consider him probably someone who really betrayed someone who really wasn't righteous. But then we're reading in 2 Peter chapter 2, it talks about how Lot was tormented in his soul over the wrongdoings in the nation around him. And so this is where we can't always judge even by what we've been given for information, because sometimes our information still is not yet complete. And that's why we trust in God, who has complete knowledge on all circumstances and all situations, and he can judge rightly. Verse 11, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Isn't this the case for those oftentimes who win the lottery? They get a lot of money hastily, but immediately they spend it. Or, to some degree, to be fair, I mean, that's what happened with a lot of the checks that the government wrote last year, or in the year before, which I think was needed. But people got a big sum of money and they just immediately spent it because it came quick. And so, there's value in slowly plotting and slowly building wealth. We also saw in another passage, I won't get down there, but we see that we're supposed to leave an inheritance to our children's children. The idea is that we're to store and we're to gain. But on the same hand, the flip side, so there's the wisdom side of that. On the flip side, there's sometimes we store and we store and we store, and it becomes our God, and we become loving and seeking after money and storing up, and when really we should be giving in to kingdom work, whether it's giving in to the needs of others or whether it's giving to something specifically to have the gospel accomplished. We're storing ultimately to no end. And Jesus talks about that in Matthew. Good sense, verse 15, wins favor, but the way of a treacherous is their ruin. Being with good sense and speaking well and acting in a good manner ultimately wins the favor of other people. But if you're treacherous in your dealings with other people, ultimately it's going to be your own ruin. And the last one I want to kind of bring up, which there's a lot of good ones again, but the wicked messenger, not the wicked messenger, every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool flaunts his folly. Be careful that when we're interacting with others, when we're talking with others, and when we're speaking with others, that we don't act foolishly and flaunt our folly. I think sometimes in today's culture we're quick to pretend like we know something when we don't, because we live in a Google culture where we feel like we could get the information readily, and sometimes we speak about things that we're really not well informed about. And so a prudent man only acts when he has the knowledge, and it's wise to know when you have knowledge and when you don't, and don't act as though the fool who just flaunts his folly. And I'll tell you, I've been in situations where I've said something I thought was true because I was just convinced it was, but I didn't have all the information and someone corrected me. And that's a very humbling place to be when you're like, yep, you know what, I was completely wrong and I acted like the fool and with folly. Whereas a prudent man means you're going to hold back and you're only going to act when you have knowledge. So think about that this weekend. Think about that as you're processing different actions, even in your day today. How can you be prudent with your actions and only act when you have knowledge? Hopefully, all of this has been helpful to you on April Fool's Day, given a little bit of wisdom on a Fool's Day. And hopefully, we'll get to see you all on Sunday. Looking forward to spending some time in the Word with you and worshiping with you and just stirring one another up to love and good works. Until then, I'll talk to you then. Take care. God bless. Good afternoon, nearly evening, Grace Community Chapel. Hope you are all doing well on this Monday evening. Getting ready to take a look at Proverbs chapter 14 and get into the Proverbs readings for this week. Hopefully, we'll get all the way through to the end of chapter 19, assuming I don't miss a day. But we'll go ahead and get right into the text here in a second. But just wanted to encourage you, if you are a follower of the channel or if you're one of the members of our church, to feel free to come out in Easter. We're going to be having a Good Friday service on the 15th at 6:30, and then we'll have our normal Easter morning service. We're going to just do a normal 10:30 service. So we'd love to have you come out and be with us at either one of those two times. And if you're just a follower of the channel or the page, we would just love to have you come out and just be with us in person, introduce yourself, and just worship with us. And if you're not sure what it's all about, feel free to come out and just the same. We would encourage you just to hear what we have to say and things. I promise we're not too culty, and we would love to just share the love of Christ with you and just be a friend if you're in need. So, but anyways, we're going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 14 today in our going through the book of Proverbs. Again, these are the Proverbs of Solomon. They are wise sayings. A lot of them don't relate. Some of them kind of are back to back, and they do relate. But ultimately, these are sayings on their own that are generally true. Again, that's not saying that it's exactly going to be true. It's always the situation, but they're general truths. They're sayings of the wise. So starting in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 1, the wisest of women builds her house, but folly with her own hands tears it down. Whoever walks in uprightness fears the Lord, but he who is devious in his ways despises him. By the mouth of a fool comes a rod for his back, but lips of the wise will preserve them. Will preserve them. There we go. Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. A faithful witness does not lie, but a false witness breathes out lies. A scoffer seeks wisdom in vain, but knowledge is easy for a man of understanding. Leave the presence of a fool, for there you will not meet words of knowledge. The wisdom of the prudent is to discern his way, but the folly of fools is deceiving. Fools mock at the guilt offering, but at the upright enjoy acceptance. Continuing down. Oh, and Lexingham Bible there. All right, continuing down. The wisdom of the prudent is discerning his way, but the folly of fools lacks. But the folly of fools is deceiving. Fools mock at the guilt offering, but the upright enjoy acceptance. Verse 10. The heart knows its own bitterness, and no stranger shares its joy. The house of the wicked will be destroyed, but the tent of the upright will flourish. There is a way that seems right unto a man, but in its end the way is to death. Even in laughter the heart may ache, and the end of joy may be grief. The backslider in his heart will be filled with the fruit of his ways, and a good man will be filled with the fruit of his ways. The simple believes everything, but the prudent gives thought to his steps. Verse 16. The one who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil, but a fool is reckless and careless. A man of quick temper acts foolishly, and a man of evil devices is hated. The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. The evil bow down before the good, and the wicked at the gates of the righteous. The poor is disliked even by his neighbor, but the rich have many friends. Whoever despises his neighbor is a sinner, but blessed is he who is generous to the poor. Do they not go astray who devise evil? Those who devise good meet steadfast love and faithfulness. In all toil there is a profit, but mere talk tends only to poverty. The crown of the wise is their wealth, but the folly of fools brings folly. Verse 25. A truthful witness saves lives, but one who breathes out lies is deceitful. In the fear of the Lord one has strong confidence, and his children will have refuge. The fear of the Lord is the fountain of life, that one may turn away from the snares of death. In a multitude of people is the glory of a king, but without people a prince is in ruin. Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly. A tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot. Whoever oppresses a poor man insults his Maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him. The wicked is overthrown through his evil doing, but the righteous finds refuge in his death. Wisdom rests in the heart of man of understanding, but it makes itself known even in the midst of fools. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. A servant who deals wisely has the king's favor, but his wrath falls on the one who acts shamefully. Wow, reading today was really difficult, wasn't it? One of those days where you're like looking at the words, you're like, man, it's just on the page, they're not coming off right. Anyways, hopefully that wasn't as much of a struggle as it was for you as it was for me. Here's some things that just was picking out in Proverbs chapter 14. Let's just take a look at them, a couple together. Again, we see in 14 verse 1, we see wisdom personified as a woman, and wise And what it is to be wise is to build your own house, but folly tears down their own house. And so there's this element of that. We are to always be about building, and this is something that's true in scriptures. It's something that's true across all of the scriptures. Is that we're to be people who are to build. We are to be people who are to be builders, and not those who tear down. And obviously, this seems obvious, but when we think about how people interact with even themselves and how they pursue their own personal destruction, we can do that just by even sometimes how we talk about ourselves, or how we treat ourselves, or how we treat the things that we own. Uh, in a sense, there's an element to which um, wisdom is always looking to build, promote, put time in, invest. Uh, Whereas folly is, as we've seen in other areas of Proverbs, is to sit on your hands, or ultimately to go about destroying your own things. And whether that's through words, whether that's through our really foolish actions, or whether that is just literally destroying our own things. I think about a couple other things. By the mouth of a fool comes a rod for his back, but the lips of wise will preserve them. And that's in verse 3. I think a lot about when I've said things foolishly, and not that someone's necessarily going to physically beat me, but in the sense of when I've spoken in foolishness, oftentimes uh, what I receive back is the evidence of my foolishness. I don't know if you've ever spoken to something that you think you knew something about, but really you were a fool, and then somebody said something else, and you realized you were the fool, and it almost acted like a rod to your back. You almost feel like you got hit. Um, and that's why we should always be careful when we're speaking. We should always be mindful. And there's a number of passages, again, and this is all through Proverbs, but a faithful witness in verse 5 does not lie. A false witness breathes out lies. Um, Verse 7 says, leave the presence of a fool, for there you do not meet words of knowledge. Right? And so we see this constant perspective of who are we around, and what are the kind of things that we're saying, and what are the kind of things that people we're around are saying. Verse 9 is very important. Fools mock at the guilt offering, but the upright enjoy acceptance. It's interesting, specifically when it's talking about mocking the guilt offering. This is talking about the sacrifice in the Old Testament system. So the fools are mocking those who are bringing the offering before the temple to the priests for the sin that they have committed. And they're saying, hey, look, this is my sin. Fools are mocking that. But ultimately, the upright enjoy acceptance, because through that guilt offering, they are accepted through that offering. And so that's what that's talking about. Really interesting. Another one, there's a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. This is kind of similar to Proverbs 3, 4, and 5, where it talks about, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight, right? Like that kind of element, right? We see that specifically here, that the way that seems right to us is not always right. Um, There's the backslider. Interesting. His heart will be filled with the fruit of his ways. Same thing with folly. We were talking about before. Folly destroys. A backslider will ultimately be filled with the fruit of his ways. His ways ultimately will be destruction. A good man will be filled with the fruit of his ways. This is what Jesus is, or I should say, Paul is talking about in the New Testament when he says that God is not mocked. Whatever a man reaps, whatever a man soweth, that he also reaps. So I think that's a large element of what that's saying. The simple believe everything, but the prudent gives thought to his steps. That's the one I'm going to leave you with. The simple believes everything, but the prudent gives thought to his steps. And then conversely, in the next verse, it's very similar. Or the one who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil, but a fool is reckless and careless. We should be really careful when we're living our lives, and when we're interacting with others, and when we're going out in the community talking, and when we're doing things, even just in the comfort of our own home, that we are not believing everything, that we're being prudent, we're giving thought to those things, that we're cautious, and that we constantly seek to turn away from evil, and that we would be careful in how we live our lives. So that would be how I'd like to leave you with today. If nothing else, those two verses would be something to be thinking about as we go through the rest of our week. That the simple believe everything, but the prudent give thought to our steps. And the one who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil, but a fool is reckless and careless. Well, hopefully there's some other stuff you got from today, and looking forward to spending some time with you tomorrow. And hopefully I won't stutter so much when I'm reading. God bless, and hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday evening.